One man bet $10 billion against the British pound, and the British pound lost. By morning, the Bank of England had raised interest rates twice. A desperate, unprecedented move. Budapest, March 1944. German tanks roll across the chain bridge, and Hungary's 800,000 Jews become targets overnight. Georgi Schwartz is 13 years old. His father Tevadar had survived Russian prison camps in the First World War. He knew exactly what occupation meant. While other families waited for instructions, Tevadar bought forged identity papers for every member of the household. Georgi Schwartz ceased to exist. In his place stood the Christian godson of a man named Baumbach, an official in Hungary's agriculture ministry. Over the next 56 days, 437,000 Hungarian Jews were loaded onto trains bound for Auschwitz. The boy walked free. He accompanied Baumbach to inventory the confiscated estates of deported Jewish families, walking through living rooms still warm with absence. Coats on hooks, photographs on mantles, lives interrupted mid-sentence. Decades later, Soros described this period not as his greatest trauma, but as the most exciting adventure of his life. That sentence has haunted people ever since. But a child's mind does what it must. Converts terror into a game to keep the self from breaking. The ability to detach, to stand inside a catastrophe and observe it like a system, to separate what you feel from what is real. His father's lesson was absolute. The rules can kill you, and survival means knowing the moment the rules no longer apply. That instinct, the ghost's instinct, would one day be worth billions. By 1947, Soviet tanks had replaced Nazi ones in Budapest. The occupation changed uniforms, not methods. Soros was 17 when he slipped out of Hungary, crossing into the West with nothing that mattered to a border guard. London swallowed him whole. He hauled luggage at railway stations, cleared dishes in restaurants, and slept in rooms not much bigger than closets. But he had talked his way into the London School of Economics, and there, in drafty lecture hall, he found the man who would reshape his mind. Karl Popper, philosopher of the Open Society, taught that all certainty is dangerous, that every belief carries the seed of its own error. Soros didn't just study this idea. He absorbed it like a second survival lesson. He began writing his own manuscript, dense, unfinished, almost unreadable. Then, in 1956, he boarded a ship to New York carrying $5,000 and that stack of handwritten pages. Wall Street thought it was getting another hungry immigrant. It was getting a philosopher looking for a lap. Most traders study charts. Soros studied delusion. As a boy in Budapest, he watched an entire nation convince itself that its neighbors weren't being loaded onto trains. A whole society deceiving itself in broad daylight. That lesson never left him. At the London School of Economics, he found the language for it. Karl Popper's theory of fallibility. Humans don't see reality. They see what they need to believe. Soros took that idea and aimed it at Wall Street like a weapon. He called it reflexivity. The idea that investor beliefs don't just reflect prices, they move prices. Boom and bust aren't accidents. They're feedback loops built on collective self-deception. In 1969, with almost no reputation, he launched the Quantum Fund. For years, nobody noticed. Then the returns started compounding, quietly, relentlessly. Over 2 decades, the Quantum Fund returned more than 3,000%. Wall Street finally looked up. A philosopher was beating every trader on the floor. The boy who understood that entire civilization can lie to themselves had found a way to monetize. September 16, 1992. A man who once hid behind a dead boy's name is about to bring a superpower to its knees. The British pound is pegged to the European exchange rate mechanism. Locked at a value everyone knows it cannot hold. London insists the peg will survive. Soros sees exactly what he saw as a child. A lie defended so fiercely it becomes its own trap. He doesn't just short the pound, he shorts $10 billion worth. The position is so massive, it bends the market towards the outcome he's predicting. The Bank of England raises interest rates twice in a single morning. First to 10%, then to 15%. Foreign reserves hemorrhage by the hour. Chancellor Norman Lamont steps before the cameras at 7:30 p.m. and announces Britain's withdrawal. It's over. Soros pockets roughly $1 billion in a single day. He calls it one of his finest trades. Britain calls it a national humiliation. A stateless refugee just proved he holds more power over a nation's currency than the nation. Now here is where the story turns. In 1979, George Soros bought photocopiers and sent them to South Africa. Black university students used them to duplicate banned texts, one forbidden page at a time, information as contraband, knowledge as rebellion. It was a small, quiet, almost poetic act of subversion. And it was only the beginning. Through the 1980s, Soros poured millions into the cracks of the Iron Curtain. He bankrolled Solidarity in Poland and funded Václav Havel's dissident networks in Czechoslovakia. He handed out scholarships across the Soviet bloc like skeleton keys. The foundation he built, he named after Karl Popper's idea, open society. The same philosophy that made him billions was now the philosophy he was spending billions to spread. Operations expanded to over 100 countries, funding free press, civil society, legal aid, democratic institutions. This was not charity. This was a man building, country by country, the kind of world that would not have produced the horrors he survived. Budapest, Silniron Sportbar. A 13-year-old boy walks through a stranger's home, carrying papers that belong to a dead man. His name is not his name. His family is not his family. He has learned the first and cruelest lesson of the 20th century. That identity is the price of survival. 80 years later, that boy has given away $32 billion, 64% of everything he ever earned, more by proportion than any billionaire in history. The false papers led to a philosophy of fallibility. The fallibility became a trading edge. The trading edge became a fortune, and the fortune became the largest private investment in human freedom the world has ever seen. Photocopiers for banned books, scholarships behind the Iron Curtain, civil society in over 100 countries. All of it traces back to one boy pretending to be someone else so he could stay alive. George Soros survived by erasing himself. Then he spent his life building a world where no one would ever have to. Survival is not the end of the story. What you do with the life you kept, that is the story.